Hello and welcome to Faith Matters, the show where we take a spiritual perspective on Merseyside life and culture. And today I'm here in Crosby with Dave Lowrie, who is a Church of England pioneer minister and soon-to-be cafe owner. And so we are here in the cafe unit in Crosby Village. It's going to be called Storyhouse and opening in October. So a very warm welcome, Dave. Hello.
Thank you.
And first of all, can you just tell us a little bit about your current role as a curate and pioneer minister?
Yeah, so I'm at a church called St Luke's just over the road from this unit. It's a fantastic Church of England church, and as a curate I'm basically still in training. I've been there for about 2 years, so I'm kind of in the practical bit of my training now. I've been at college, done the theory, and this is like getting out on the road type thing and hoping you don't swerve and hit another car, that kind of training, the practical bit. So I'm there now, currently without a vicar, so that's keeping me quite busy, which is good. So I do a lot of the normal kind of stuff you'd expect from a vicar, do funerals, do home visits, do assemblies in schools, all those kind of things, get out and about in the community as well as doing Sundays and stuff like that. And then alongside of that, I've got my pioneer role, which means basically being in the community, getting to know people. So far it's involved a lot of, sitting down, having coffees with the people, having pints with the people, getting to know the area, getting to know what the people are about, and also opening up our home. So we quite regularly just let people come in, we have dinner with them, see how things are going with them, listen to them, pray for them, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Now, can you just tell us a little bit about how you came to be a Church of England minister?
Yeah, so it wasn't really an obvious path for me because I grew up in an independent church where some of the people thought Church of England people weren't even Christians. It was like this whole other world that was distant. But around me at that time, I had a lot of people who were evangelists. So these were people who loved to tell people about Jesus. They were very passionate about that. They really loved people to bits as well. They tend to be quite fun, quite creative people. So I looked up to them because they were probably the most exciting people in church. So I had them around me, and so I kind of wanted to be them and be like them. And after the normal Christian thing you do in your teenage years where you don't care about your faith and you go away and you do other stuff, I kind of came back to it in my 20s and started doing more and more of this evangelism stuff. Started to spend time with homeless guys in the streets of Chester, started to do a lot of youth work, and this was all in Chester where I was living at the time. And I found myself in a Church of England church, and that was, ever since then I've actually been in the Church of England. But kind of the whole vicar thing wasn't really me because I like being on the streets, I like being with people, and that's what I really cared about. And then one day found out about this thing called pioneer ministry, which combined both the kind of vicar thing and the evangelist thing, and I was like, that's me, that's what I want to do, that's what I really care about. And so as soon as I saw that being a pioneer in the Church of England was possible, that I could be a vicar but out on the streets and out with people rather than in a church building, I was like, yes, and I kind of signed up for that and went through selection and all that, and here I am. Yeah,
Now, for people who maybe find that word evangelism a bit scary or a bit off-putting, how would you describe what you do to maybe allay some of those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I think for whatever reason, the first image that comes to most people's heads is the guy shouting at people on the streets who's socially very awkward and just, shouting the most horrendous things at strangers who pass us by. And in Britain, like, that's like the worst thing you could do, isn't it? Because, we barely make eye contact, and here you are telling someone they're a terrible person, they're going to hell or whatever. And so that's the kind of image we have, and I don't know why that is, because as I was saying, when I was growing up, the evangelists that I knew were the most fun-filled, people-loving people I've ever known. And they spent more of their time listening to people and their stories than they did telling them things. They did outrageous, fun things. And actually, I think we're at a place now in our culture where people are far more open to the truth and what religions have to say than we have been for a long time. So quite typically, I'll talk to someone of an older generation and they'll think, religion, faith, all that kind of stuff is supposed to be private and kept kind of hidden away. You don't talk about it, it's kind of awkward. But more and more, as people get younger and younger, as generations come through, they just don't feel like that. They're actually quite open. They want to hear what you have to think as well as you hearing what they think. And really, that's what it is. Evangelism, at the end of the day, is a conversation. And it's a conversation in which one of those people also know Jesus. And there's nothing more to it than that. And we show what we know. We can't make anyone believe anything or do something. We'd never do that to someone. So we just think happen to know something that's amazing, and we want to tell other people about that.
Fantastic. Okay, so just let's move on then to the cafe itself. How did you get this idea about using a cafe in a sort of church context? Can you give us a bit of background about what led you to the cafe idea?
Yeah, well, actually, it started years ago. I brought a little prop.
Here we go.
So that cafe thing was a cafe that me and a lady called Lizzie opened around about 10, 11 years ago, which makes me feel really old and depressed. But yeah, we did that in Chester. So I came out of a gap year with this charity doing homeless and youth work and things like that, and stayed on working with them. But I had this idea that I thought a cafe would be a great place where people could come and in their own time and space discover about Jesus and about the Christian faith and things like that. So that's what I set out to do, and I emailed around everyone I knew, and I was like, this is something I want to do. And a friend of a friend of a friend passed it on to Lizzie, who was living down south at the time. And she moved up to Chester, and we opened this coffee shop together, and we had a great year. It was just brilliant, and it really worked. And we had like a prayer space in there, but apart from that, we were just a regular coffee shop. And over that year, we built friends with people who would have never set foot in a traditional church, like not in a million years. But they really engaged with the prayer space. We became friends, we talked about faith, and gradually they made steps and decided that that was a faith that they wanted for themselves as well. So it really worked, it was great, except that we ran out of money. And we also ran out of health because we were working kind of 70 and 80-hour weeks. We got really ill, we got very tired, and financially the cafe where we'd situated it just wasn't viable, basically. And so we had to close. The upshot being me and Lizzie married, which is great, yay. And so, you know, years later we find ourselves here in Crosby, and we've kind of parked that cafe thing, which is what it was called, like in our past. And we're like, you know, we're done with that now. That was part of our story, but we're never going back there. And then as we get to know Crosby, we recognize there's a real desire here for community to be better than it is now. So the village where we are at the moment used to be like the thriving hub of Crosby, and people were so proud of it. And people who've lived here for a long time are really sad now that there's so many kind of empty shops there and betting shops and things like that. And they're like, that's not what it used to be like. So there was an older woman who was saying when she was a kid and she would come into Crosby Village, she had to wear her best clothes. It was like a special occasion. And it kind of symbolized the life of the community. And we just realized that as long as it's like this, you know, it's almost like a symbol for the village as a whole and the community life as the whole. So over time, we slowly dawned on us that actually the best thing we could do was to help to revitalize the village by opening a great local business in it. And that to be a cafe, a community space, a place where people could come together, they could meet the people who were in their community and get together. But it took a long time for us to come around to that, because we were like, oh man, it was really hard last time we did this. It left us like, you know, broke and ill and all that kind of thing. Like, do we really want to do that again? And so, you know, we prayed a lot. And I kind of tentatively mentioned it to our vicar at the time, Pete. And, you know, he wasn't sure, because it's a big risk for a church to take to do something like this. And then we were at this meeting and some people were praying for us. And these people didn't know us, like they didn't know us at all. And then one of them said, you're thinking about opening a cafe, you need to do that. And we were like, okay, right, that's probably God speaking to us and giving us the final nudge to go and do this. And that was the final nudge. And from there, we decided to tell the whole church about this, and we kind of took it from there with them.
Oh gosh, what an incredible journey. Now, we are shortly about to go to our break, but just before we do, you probably have already started to touch on this, but I was wondering what you think a cafe has to do with church.
Yes. Yeah, it's a funny thing. We got fixed in our mind this idea of church now, where it's an old building and it's meetings and it's all these kind of things. But church is just simply Jesus' family. It's God's family in this world. And at the moment, we're centering our family life around a meeting in which everyone faces the same way, makes no eye contact, stands up, sit down, repeats things at the front, and then goes home again. And actually, to us, it makes a lot more sense that we should put our family life around a place of hospitality, a place where we can welcome anyone in, everyone's welcome, and also where we can spend some quality time together, get to know each other, share stories, find out what's going on in our lives. And to me, that makes more sense because Jesus did an awful lot of eating with people and spending time with people, like all kinds of people. You know, those who were like socially acceptable, socially unacceptable, and all that kind of thing. So really, we're about creating a space where that can happen. And for me, church makes more sense in that context than in a meeting where we don't talk and face forward.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Dave. That's brilliant. It's opened up a lot of questions about what church is and what it could be. We're going to talk more about that after the break, but for now we are going to stop. And if you have any comments or suggestions, do email us at faithmatters@baytvliverpool.com. See you soon. Hello and welcome back to Faith Matters. I'm here in Crosby Village in a cafe unit that is soon to be opening. It's going to be called Storyhouse, and I'm with the cafe owner Dave Lowrie, who is also a Church of England pioneer minister. So welcome back, Dave.
Thank you.
We were just chatting before the break a little bit about your journey from into church ministry and then sort of almost out the other side to this new form of church, which is going to be the cafe. And I was just wondering that because it's such maybe a different thing to do, have you experienced any opposition to the idea? Are there people who think that church shouldn't be in this form? And I'm just wondering if you could say a bit about whether there was any opposition and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, definitely. No, there really was opposition, and I felt like that, you know, so the first thing I had to do really was to recognise that I'd felt that opposition myself. You know, when we first thought of doing this idea, it wasn't, you know, completely obvious and natural to us. Especially when you spend all your time working in a more traditional church, you just get used to that's what church is and that's how church works. And as human beings, we like to know how the world works. And if someone or something comes along and says, no, the world could work differently, we're going to resist that because it's unsettling to us. And so I get that because I'd felt that myself, and I'd, you know, wrestled a lot with this idea of opening a cafe in Crosby. So what we did is when we decided to tell the whole church, we held a series of meetings so that everyone could have their say and everyone could have their input and they could hear the idea and have time to get used to the idea, because we knew we were asking a lot of them. But actually what's been most amazing is just how on board they've been. Like, you know, St. Luke's have just taken this on, decided this is what they want to do in Crosby. They've really supported the idea. They're really behind it. We've got a lot of people at St. Luke's doing practical help as well as, you know, helping financially, you know, giving their own money towards making this happen. They've just been absolutely fantastic. So alongside, you know, there has been resistance. There are still people who don't get it and probably never will get it, and that's fine. You know, that's the way things go, and with anything new, that's the way it is, really. So, yeah.
Well, let's then talk a little bit about what it'll look like day to day.
Yeah.
So, at the moment, we're in a unit that is about to hopefully be all re-renovated and all sorts. So, can you tell us maybe a little bit about what you plan for it to look and feel like?
Yeah, so me and my wife, Lizzie, who I mentioned before the break, we're both just massive coffee snobs. Like, we love coffee shops, and that's where we choose to go on our day off and what we choose to do for fun. And we're like human versions of TripAdvisor. When we're there, we're just like looking around and go, wouldn't do that. You know, this coffee's 7 out of 10 or whatever. Like, we can't help it, you know. We're just, you know, coffee snobs, but we love it. And it's really great. And we kind of, over the years, we come up with this little theory that what makes a place really great is if the service is good, the food's good, and the atmosphere is good. And we think, like, usually good places have 2 of those 3, and occasionally you go to somewhere awesome and they do all 3 of those things. So it's a space you really want to be in, the food and the drink's amazing, and the staff, the customers are really friendly. And that's the one we usually get wrong in England, because like, we just don't do it. If you ever spend any time in America, you're like, oh my word, I'm being so out-polited, it's unbelievable. I don't know how to do with this. But we kind of want to do a bit of that. So basically it'll be just an independent coffee shop with, you know, a bit of funky decor and all that kind of thing. Functionally, it'll work like a lot of coffee shops. You walk in, you choose your sandwiches, your cake, order your drinks, and then collect them at the end. But during that experience, we want there to be a great atmosphere, great music. We want the food to be outstanding, so we're going to make all the food ourselves and all that kind of thing. We're having to go through the very difficult role right now of having to test a lot of food and drink a lot of coffee and stuff like that. It's difficult, but we're doing it, for the sake of the people who come here. And we just want it to be a great space to be in, and we're going to put a lot of time and effort into everyone who works here to be as friendly and warm and welcoming and accepting of everyone who comes through as we can be, really.
Now, I think that's interesting because I guess part of owning a cafe is actually about hospitality.
Yeah.
So would there be events on or particular groups that you're hoping to run from this place? Would they be free of charge, or what do you have a program in mind? Yeah,
definitely. So one of the things we really want to do is to help build community in Crosby. Like at the moment, this is a random offshoot, but at the moment everyone's obsessed with Pokemon Go, and they're all like, "Oh, Pokemon Go!" And you've got, everyone's doing it, adults through to kids, and all that kind of thing. And then you see people like posting on Twitter and stuff, discovering they've got a neighbour and things like that. Who would have thought it? That big house next to their house has people in it, and they have names, and they've met them for the first time, and it's crazy. And that's the kind of culture we live in, where people just are not connecting as well as they could do. And so in Crosby, we want to improve that. So the events and things we'll put on will be largely about that kind of stuff. So we're going to do what we're calling storytelling evenings. And these will be evenings where you can come and share a bit of your own story as well as listen to other people's stories. We're going to do, book groups. We're going to have open mic nights. We're going to do all these kind of things where people can very easily come together. And the nice thing for us is, as a coffee shop, we don't have a license. We're not going to sell alcohol, which means we can include more people. So something we found last time when we did a coffee shop, we opened late night, is we got these bands in from high schools and things who, were too young to play in pubs, but had nothing to do with their spare time but practice. And so they were amazing bands. And so, we're going to be able to give them a space where they can gig and where their friends can come. And so there's that. And then also just loads of people, my peers and older people and stuff I've chatted to are like, we'd just like to go out in the evening sometimes. And there to be a place where there's just, you don't have to get drunk or you don't have to have a drink, and you can just relax with friends. Be a bit more like the rest of Europe and just a bit more chill about that kind of stuff.
Brilliant. Now, you kind of sort of briefly alluded to the fact that you are at this stage where you're forming a menu and making lots of things and, trying out different recipes. And we've got some delicious cakes in front of us.
Delicious cakes.
But part of it as well is actually training up other people. So you and Lizzie are going to be the main people behind it, but then you've got a bit of a team. Yeah. Could you explain a bit about the team and maybe about the training that you're planning?
Yeah, so we've had the privilege over the last few years of spending time with other Christians who are running cafes around the country in the same way we want to. And they've been established longer than the year that we were open for. And so they've found out a bit more what it's like to be church as a cafe. And so one of those was Tube Station down in Cornwall and Polzeth, amazing bunch of people. They're very much about the surfers where they are, and so they've got a very laid back way of life. But something you see is the people who work for Tube Station, their lives change over time. And so the cafe manager I knew when I was there is now, he's now going a whole new stage of life where he's getting married and he's going to look at becoming a church leader himself. And then recently we went down to London to a cafe called Cahyla in Shoreditch, and we chatted to the owner there, Paul, about how they do things, and they really focus on the people who work for the cafe, and that's a big part of what they're about. And so what they do is when they see a bit of a God spark in someone, a bit of something that's wanting to get out of them, they give them a day a week to go and do what they're passionate about for God. So one woman who was working for them got a day a week to go and work with street workers in London and get to know them, befriend them, and find out what's going on with them. Someone else decided she was going to go into prisons and get to know female prisoners and what their life was about. And as a result of doing that, they've set up a bakery for women to give them employment, both coming off the street and out of prison, to give them skills so that they don't have to go back into the same lives they had before. And they've set up a whole bunch of other stuff, and that's purely as a result of putting their focus and their time on the people who work there and saying, okay, what's God doing in your life? What does God want to do with you? And then their lives have ended up becoming quite amazing, and they've had quite an impact. So that really matters to us, actually, that some of the most important people in this cafe are going to be the ones who work here. And so we started looking for some young adult Christians who can come work here, who are really passionate about God, but don't know quite where their life's going yet. And we're going to walk alongside them and see what God's got for them.
Fantastic. Now, I really want to leave enough time for us to try some of these delicious treats in front of us.
This is a bake that we're definitely going to have in the cafe, and this is a bit more an experimental one. So yesterday, some friends of ours came around with a whole bunch of black currants that they'd picked from their garden, and thinking we could do something with them. So this is an experiment of a bit of a blackcurrant bun. So that's what that is. It's a bit of an old English recipe that we found.
Great.
This is a definite for the cafe. So this is a cinnamon bun with cream cheese frosting on it, and I'm really hoping that's all right. I've literally not even tested one of those. Is that okay?
Very nice.
That's good. Great.
So then the cinnamon buns are definite, is it?
Yes. Yeah. So this is a favourite that people always request from us. So
what's in this?
So we've got cinnamon, we've got brown sugar, all around an enriched dough, and then you've got a cream cheese frosting over the top of it.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very good.
Well, thanks.
So we're going to have these, and we're going to make a lot more of our own cakes as well. So we're going to do all of that. I'm also a bit of a mad baker when it comes to bread.
Yes.
But I don't know whether I can face the 3 a.m. starts. So we're going to hold fire on the bread to start off with, and maybe get that in.
Okay.
But eventually we may be making our own bread. We're certainly going to be doing bread making classes, because that's something I've done in the past and love. It's such fun to do. So we'll be doing bread making classes here in the evening as well. But yeah, all the cakes and everything that we sell will be made here, so you won't be able to get them anywhere else, and they'll be fresh and awesome.
Can you just finally give us a little bit about the sort of schedule, the plan for when you're going to open, and if there's going to be a launch, and also maybe about how people can get in touch with you?
Yes, so we are basically still in the legals bit, so we're in planning at the moment, so hopefully within about a month we'll get a decision that we can do all the things to this building that we want to do with it. So that's sitting with the council at the moment. If they give us the go ahead, then we can move in with some builders and electricians and plumbers and start putting everything in. That takes a little while, that takes a couple of months. And then once that's done, we're hoping for kind of an October opening. I've promised people openings that have spanned the whole of 2016 so far. Literally, like at first we were like, yeah, February, we'll be open February. It's so not open right now, as you can see. It's very much not open. So we've kind of moved through, so I don't want to over-promise when that's going to be, but we're hoping for a kind of October start. But you know, we can always trip up unexpected things. So that's what we're hoping for. Once we've got the definite go-ahead to move into the building, that's when we'll be setting up our Facebook accounts and Instagram and all that kind of thing. So nearer the time, people can look up Storyhouse Crosby, and we'll have a Facebook page, we'll have a website, we'll have all that kind of thing. For now, basically what we want is people who are going to pray for us. So if people out there are prayers, you know, and they're willing to pray for us, just email us at prayerlist@storyhouse.community. So that's prayerlist@storyhouse.community, and we'll put you on that list and we'll get you praying for us, because we'd really appreciate that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dave. It's been a pleasure to chat with you today. And do keep your eyes peeled for anything that's going on with Storyhouse Crosby. Now, this is going to be my last show today, so I will say goodbye, and also inform you that next time Keith Hitchman will be returning to carry on with Faith Matters. But that's it for me. Thank you very much. Goodbye.